Welcome to the Texas Oil and Gas Podcast, the show dedicated to bring you the news from the oil patch deep in the heart of Texas, with your hosts, Ryan Ray and Josh Shelton.
We're back with the Texas Oil and Gas Podcast. We appreciate you tuning in to today's episode. This is episode 206. 206. I'm your host, Josh, with my friend and co-host Ryan Ray. Ryan, we got another 5-star review just came in, man.
Yes, sir.
You see that?
I did. I'm trying to get my there it is. Okay. My iTunes phone stuff's not working. There it is. Okay, from WTX H2O. WTX H2O. I enjoy listening while on my way to the field. Great update. Thank you very much for the 5-star, which puts us at 313. So we're on our way to 400. Let's go ahead and get that knocked out. It'd be good for us. We'd appreciate it. But thank you for the 5-star review. We have another guest coming on today. A lot of guests, Josh. It's just bringing the guest week after week, bringing the information. So if you appreciate that, 5-star review. If you don't, 5-star review. We don't actually accept 1-star reviews. So
5-star only. And
that's right.
We also accept small and large donations in all sizes. Any parties. Open to give strategy sessions.
Listen, Josh will take a little bit more dirty money than I will. I'll take dirty money, but he'll take his money a little bit more dirty. Sequential $100 bills he's willing to take. You know, there's a line in the sand for me. So,
well, Ryan, $5 million, something along those lines. We can make it happen. So oilprice.com, Ryan, just looking at that, oil this morning's around 65. I think I had an article that I found that talked about the Iranian deal, that, you know, the nuclear deal that they're talks with UN and people monitoring them. Apparently, the oil price dropped a little bit last week based on some of those discussions, but now it's rebounding today. I say today, over the weekend and today. I mean, what are we thinking? How do you seeing that affect oil prices in the next couple of months? You think Iran's going to be a big player here, or do you think this is all just news stuff?
Yeah. Well, if you remember going back to last year, you know, the fact that there's more Iranian oil in the market than has been reported is not news, except for the way that the news is covered. And that sounds weird. It's not really news to those who kind of follow what's going on with Iran. But now it's starting to get more coverage. And so you've had to wonder how much of that was playing with the pricing, is that there was more Iranian oil out there than was being reported on. And so as we move forward, if the sanctions were lifted on Iran, you would see a closer number to what they're actually producing, you know, almost instantaneously. And so that might drive the price down some if it's, I don't know what they're reporting right now, but if it was double what they're reporting or a time and a half more than what they're reporting, you know, it'd probably drive the price down some. So you have that. They might also increase production as well. They've lost a lot of money on this deal. So I think that's kind of where the Iranian stuff sits for now. The price, though, has been strong for a long period of time. And so, you know, I mean, we're 6 months into the year almost, and it's still $65. And so if you go back and look, I don't know if I can get this chart to work real quick. Let's see if I can. You know, for the last 3 months, it's been over 55. And if you go back to, if I get this chart to work, since January, I don't think it's dipped below 50, right? Maybe once briefly. Yeah, dipped below 40 on January 5th, but pretty much over 50 since January. And so, you know, that's what the industry needs. It won't. It's been above 55 since almost back to February. You know, there's a few dips in there. But anyways, so the price is good. The price is strong. Now, I have Mark Rosano coming on Inside the War Room tomorrow. I'll be curious to see his takes because, you know, he's a little concerned about inflation or has been. So I'm curious to see how he reads some of this tomorrow.
Yeah, it's been something that it's been interesting to watch. It's kind of how these players in the Middle East and how the oil price has been holding strong even amidst some uncertainty there. I know OPEC is one, you know, big thing that we have our eye on as far as how that's going to impact oil prices. But even Zero Heads that reported this article, they're still seeing Brent being up, at 80 a barrel by the fourth quarter of this year. Jay Young, obviously, he was very bullish on oil price this year, and but it's been holding strong. It's good to see. Hopefully, companies are taking advantage of the opportunity for sure.
So if you're OPEC, don't you do everything in your power to prevent the price from getting to 80? Like, don't you? They meet monthly now, so don't you do everything? Because if it gets to 80, you have to be concerned that the narrative in the U.S. about the dollars willing to invest in the market that starts to change. Because at 80, the profitability gets pretty good. So maybe these financial groups start putting money back into the U.S. Frackers, E&Ps. And so if that happens, then obviously the price could get drilled down right too far. So I wonder if OPEC is going to. I don't know if they can control it that much, but if they're going to do everything in their power to prevent it from getting to 80, because I'd be concerned. Drill baby drill might be the next motto if we see $80 prices, which could get back to $40, $30 prices, right? Because everybody rushes out there to drill and then they drill back down. So.
But if OPEC does it, I mean, what would it drop to then? Do you think they could
I think
monitor it down to 65?
I think they like it right here. I think they're content. So that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't think they want to. I think right now, if you look at it, the U.S. the concern was OPEC might ramp up production to keep the prices soft. That hasn't happened. That the U.S. producers might run out there and put the prices down. That hasn't happened. The prices are good. Everyone can make money. Theoretically, not everyone, but the players can make money right now. And so if you're OPEC and the price continues to climb, you're incentivized more players to come to the market. And so when more players come to the market, the risk is then that you eventually go over that curve and too many players come in, or too many rigs at least come online, and all of a sudden you just push the price back down and you can't stop it. So U.S. producers can't obviously afford that, but they also can't stop it from happening the same way that OPEC can. So I'm saying, like, will they try to do their best to prevent it from crossing above 70 and try to keep it in the 60 range? I'm not saying that they have the power; they can put that much on the market. But if I were them, that would be my focus.
Yeah, I wonder if that would be the mentality with the way the market is kind of sitting right now, with the hesitancy to invest large amounts of money. $80 a barrel, the opportunities for making some nice profits are there. So you would think, even with all the uncertainty, you'll see a lot more people starting to run the risk. But at the same time, I don't think we're going to see it anything like we saw like 2017, because people have been burned and there's a lot of hesitation because, Keystone Pipeline can get shut down.
Right.
These banning on federal lands can happen with, just one administration change. So there's just these uncertainties that are there that I think before you go and invest that kind of money, you really want to do your homework and make sure you have a good investment on your hands.
It's definitely different, right? It's definitely different. That's why I think the money's slower to come back. But at some point, the money will come back. Now, is that 80? Is it got to get to 90? Does it get to 100? I don't know. But at some point, the money will say, you know what, we're going to take the risk here. And so we'll see. I think, again, OPEC will do its best to try to keep the prices sub 70, because they can make money there. The U.S. companies can make money there, the ones that are in it at least. And, it's good for the industry. Let's be honest. It's good for the industry to have long-term steady prices.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, I'm happy to see it right now. All right, so we've been following the Dakota Access Pipeline, just what's going on there. So just to kind of catch everybody up, Ryan, I believe what happened is one of the governor, I think it was Whitmer, made a comment that there was this small place where this pipeline was passing over, and she was wanting to shut the whole pipeline down, the pipeline that ran from Canada to the U.S. And so David Blackman, our good friend, wrote at the Forbes, a key ruling on Friday for Bakken Shale-focused oil and gas industry. Federal Judge James Bowers begrudgingly allowed the Dakota Access Pipeline to continue transporting oil while they're going through these environmental reviews. So the pipeline will stay active, but they're not out of the woods yet, and so they are doing the environmental review. Ryan, do you think this is good news or bad? at some level, it's definitely good news that it's staying open. But just the fact that they're actually doing the review and going through this whole process, man, it would make me nervous. To be honest with you,
it gets exhausting, right? I mean, it's just like, man, what do you got to do? What do you have to do to work in this country these days? And I think the Whitmer deal is line 5, isn't it? She's not tied up with Apple, I don't think, but I could be wrong about that. She's tied up with that line 5 under the river or whatever it is in Michigan. But am I crazy on that, or am I correct?
No, you're right. Yeah, you're right. I saw it, and that was kind of fresh on my mind.
Yeah,
so this is this one's an environmental review though, so it's similar.
Yeah, but it's not at least you have, it's not the executive branch kind of laying the law down here. You have the judicial branch who's involved as well. It's concerning because here we are, and what does the future of large pipeline projects in our country look like? And I think on the show we talked about it, but if we can't build these large infrastructure projects from Canada down to the Gulf Coast, Canada will have to do something with its oil, right? And they'll eventually sell it to China or ship it somewhere else or ship it to the U.S. And what will happen is the U.S. policymakers will get mad at Canada for doing something other than piping it through our country, and then we'll start blaming Canada for making a different decision. It's like, well, guys, we're not being reliable here. We need to be reliable trade partners, and you have to have reliable policy that's a reliable trade partner. And right now, we just do not have reliable policy, and it's so frustrating. I'm not for over regulation, but at least in an over regulatory environment, you at least know what the rules are. Right now, we don't know what the rules are, and that's the worst type of environment because it changes. You have the Biden administration, you have the Obama administration, then you have the Trump administration, and you have the Biden administration, and he's obviously not going to run again. So you'll have either maybe the Harris administration or the Republican administration again, or if I run in 2024 and dominate the Ray administration, whatever it might be. But we don't have the parties are so opposite on stuff like this that it creates these big, huge pendulum swings, and that's just not good for long-term diplomacy, long-term international business, and long-term investment in the country. And so it's just so frustrating.
Yeah, it's frustrating too that politics plays such a big role in how these things are put forward. Because as Blackman notes here at the end of his article, Biden's own energy secretary Jennifer Granholm said a couple of weeks ago, "Pipe is the way to go." So why wouldn't people say that during the Keystone Pipeline? Like, what's the when they're trying to shut down, Line 5? How come the posture of the administration isn't, well, the pipe is the best way to do this. So until we no longer need oil or find something to replace that energy, we're going to have these pipelines in place. So that's not how they speak or talk about it when it's not politically convenient. But when it is, they're fine with saying that. And it's frustrating because it seems there has to be some ulterior motives for them to actually come out and admit and acknowledge that pipe is the best way to transport these fossil fuels.
Agreed. It's infuriating, and it's just what are we doing here? We're playing games. It feels like.
So, Ryan, I saw a story. It reminded me of our long lost friend that hasn't come on the show in like a year. Did you see the news story? There's this company, Cimarex, joined with a company we've kind of talking about, kind of not talking about for like 4 years now. Cabot Oil and Gas. Did you see where they merged to create a $17 billion producer?
If only we had a reporter who covered such a topic.
Right. Yes. Yeah. He's went on out of the the key part of the industry, which obviously is this podcast, and he is.
Where did he went to some small group? Where did he go to?
Yeah. Somebody. Yeah.
Was it Bloomingdale's? Like a clothing or something? I don't know. Blue Bonnet. Blue Bell ice cream. I can't remember. He went to some small outfit. He can't remember where he went. But yeah, if only the man, the myth, the legend, Sergio Chapa himself would cover at Cabot, we would not have to break this news for him. But anyways, what's the story, Josh? $17 billion.
Cimarex, Cabot Oil and Gas, they're merging to create a $17 billion producer. This was the big deal in the news today when I was doing some research. I mean, this was everywhere. They're expecting to save $100 million in annual general and administrative costs by the merger. One of the things you're going to see, I hadn't even checked this, Ryan, I'm just guessing. They're going to get torched on their stock prices because of this merger, even though it makes a lot of sense for them. This is what we're seeing. But anyway, the deal is going to combine Cabot's 170,000 net acres in the Marcellus and Cimarex's 560,000 net acres in Texas, Permian, and also Oklahoma's Anadarko.
You paid your normal $5 million fee to advise on this deal too, Josh, or not?
Oh yeah. So you can put me on retainer, and we can spread those payments out over a couple of years. I'll work with you.
I need cash in advance. I'm not too sure if prices dip back down. There might not be payments a couple of years from now, so I need cash on hand. Okay, I think our guests are here. Let's see if we can bring them on. Let's get you guys unmuted. You got to unmute yourself. You are muted. So Simon and Omar, if you could unmute yourself. There we go. All right, put you fellows on the big screen here. There we go. Hey, okay, can you hear us?
We can hear you guys. Can you hear us?
Yeah.
Yes,
okay.
sir.
Yeah, go ahead and introduce yourself, please.
I'm Simon Palacio here. I'm a senior electrical engineer with Burns & McDonnell Engineering, and
Omar Akita is bar manager in our utility consulting division.
Okay, good
Awesome.
deal, guys. Good deal. So, how is it going on your neck of the woods?
here in Houston.
Yeah, we're up here in North Texas. So, is it hot and humid down there yet?
It's rainy. We're getting a lot of rain. We're going to turn up the volume here.
Yeah, we're getting a lot of rain up here too. So, for those not familiar, maybe do a quick introduction on who is Burns & McDonnell. What do you guys do?
You are muted.
You're muted. You're muted.
Is that better?
There you go.
Yeah.
So Burns & McDonnell is a mid-size EPC, about 7,000 people all across the U.S., some assets in Canada and the U.K. One of our biggest markets is transmission and distribution. We're an employee-owned company that does a lot of work on electric grids all across the U.S. for different utilities, heavy industrial interconnects, and that's what kind of got us into this Texas oil and gas market.
Okay, so I know you guys want to talk about oil field electrification. Obviously, that's a term that we've talked about historically, but what's kind of your angle on it, and why is that an important thing for folks in the oil and gas industry to be thinking about?
Yeah, so thanks for asking the question. What we're seeing, trends both, changes in administration, but also long before that, especially driven by investors. Folks are looking for a portfolio that includes investment into how are you going to, reduce your emissions throughout your process, right? And so we've seen that in drivers in investment and, activist investment, things like that. And a lot of folks are looking for that plan. Electrification is one of those options. And we've been helping a lot of folks kind of ferret out the different options, right? So all the way from put a solar panel on every rig out there, which is not the way to go per se, but also, more importantly, like looking into electrifying in kind of grid scenario to reduce scope 1, scope 2 type emissions. And, we've really been driven by, so our clients come in to look for solutions, right? Folks have to put it, in front of their boards, their direct and the approximate costs and approaches that may be successful in kind of ESG type scenarios.
So one of the things with the like flare mitigation and using it for electricity that I've heard people talk about, and we've kind of wondered, is it something that's like significantly more profitable, or is it just more of an investor relations? How should producers think about this? Is it something that's going to actually increase your bottom line, or is it something that guys, it's not actually gonna make you a lot of money, but you'll be able to get investors, or is it both?
I put it in the both category, not to just straddle the fence, but I think it's going to depend on what your assets look like, right? What we found is that is a lot more profitable in areas where you have a large need for power density. right? So when you have shale plays, you have a lot of things going on. You need a lot of power in one particular area. You start to have an ability to utilize, higher utilization of electrical infrastructure, right? So all of a sudden, that capex spend to reduce, the cost of energy, which is a long-term OPEC scenario, really starts to look profitable, right? But in other places, I mean, if you're looking from like a global mindset, do you take into account the cost of your capital, your ability to get it from the market or other places? And that's really where you start to see in this tipping point. If nothing else, folks want to see in your quarterly reports and your annual reports describing what are you doing and what are you looking into. And if nothing else, doing that feasibility assessment up front in the right way really helps you in that scenario.
And are you guys, what do you normally see? Let's take like a Permian well. So a typical Permian well, are they just using this to self-power the equipment out there, or can they put a bunch of it back on the grid? Because obviously if you can use the power for yourself, you can reduce the cost, but is there enough to put back on the grid? Maybe unpack, is it case by case? How does that work?
Absolutely case by case, right? So at the end of the day, whether it be your well or your processing facilities or getting into the pipeline, you have compression scenarios, you have a lot of use for energy, you have getting out of the hole. In those, there's a lot of different options, right? So maybe you can utilize some of that excess gas to produce your own electricity there on the pad or at certain locations in a gathering sense. Other places is really just becoming a large consumer on the grid. Especially in places like Permian and others, you're already in a scenario where the electric market is giving you a lot of cheap wholesale power, right? So if you know anything about the electrical grid, a lot of your renewables, solar, wind, all those type of things on a per energy basis in the near term, right, at the spot market are really low. At certain points, you actually get negative pricing. Right? Would you want to be a consumer when you have negative pricing on the wholesale? Yeah, absolutely. Sign me up. So it really depends on kind of all the different factors and someone who understands, hey, how does this power when I need to power, right? Horsepower, electric power, either way, something needs to spin, right? Something needs to get compressed. And then what is the cost to do that, both CapEx and OpEx scenario? And that OpEx can be hugely different, right? You can be in portions of the deregulated market within ERCOT or other places, right? We also have seen a lot of folks look at this in New Mexico and Oklahoma and other places. It's not just in Texas. Or you could be in, kind of more regulated scenario in the old kind of vertically integrated pocket. And there's a lot of options there too. At the end of the day, it's really trying to look into what's best for your asset and for your portfolio, especially power purchase and gaining capital from the market.
So if a company's looking at trying to increase the electrification, what sort of U-Haul do they have to do of their current assets? I mean, to make that transition, it has to be a pretty significant investment, I'm guessing, from what they're currently using. So we saw people that were switching from diesel to natural gas powered, or these dual. Well, I guess what my question is, if these companies wanted to look into doing this, are there phases where they could do this, or is it going to have to be a complete rehaul of their current assets?
It certainly helps to look at it from a big picture approach, because you can't just, scab together, we'll build one electric circuit here for this place, build another electric circuit there for that place. And next thing you know, then you've got voltage, quality issues going up and down because you didn't look at the system as a whole as you were going to build out everything. And we've seen some of that with some of the early adoption folks, some of the large E&Ps that were early adopters of this and didn't really come with a big front end plan. You start running into issues where there's blackouts, and blackouts aren't tracked. Why did you have a blackout? How long? Where? How to fix these things along the way? Where's overloaded? Where's not overloaded? And why? None of these things were really tracked with proper asset management. And some of the other folks who went in a little wiser and created a big plan ahead of time and phased execution are doing a lot better. So it's interesting. We get to see it from different folks that have taken different approaches for both the E&P side, but also the utility side.
Yeah, and so to your point about what I would consider like brownfield applications, right? So you already got something spinning something out there, right? You got an energy source, you got something going on. there's still opportunity there. There's obviously a higher cost, but in a greenfield application, if you got to get the compression out there, you got to get the motor. It's just buying one versus another, right? And so there may be a much better opportunity there. But don't get me wrong, great opportunity in the brownfield space as well. But we always look at it from helping our clients is, what does your portfolio look like, right? If you're all brownfield, is there still opportunity? There might be. Or do you have a mix of brownfield, greenfield, right? And kind of a CapEx spend plan for the next 5-10 years. Where do you really want to focus that? At the end of the day, it's looking at derivative metrics of carbon reduction versus MVA or versus dollar OPEX or things like that. Those derivative metrics will point you in that space, because a lot of times folks say, hey, I have X $1 million to spend on this type of initiative. Where do I spend it? And if you look at those derivative metrics as in any kind of economic assessment, they're going to tell you where the right way to go is. The data is going to tell you what to do.
Up until this point, it's only been a few years where some of the equipment that you can buy, whether it be submersible pumps or back rigs, have been offered in fully electric models. It's only a few years old. So I mean, there's a lot of folks out there that are really set up entirely without a clean-cut way to electrify, without going through some major spend on some electrification by buying all new equipment or converting old equipment, compressors from combustion driven to electric drive ones. That's not a cheap project to take on.
Is this something that we have producers that are kind of big and small all listening? Is this something that they can come together and say, you know what, I'm gonna make up names here, but like an EOG can partner with Ryan's independent, small, unnamed producer you never heard of? Or is it something that they have to tackle on their own? Because I could see a situation where a small producer might go, yeah, listen, I would like to do this, but I don't really have enough. Is it something that they could partner with a nearby drilling partner, or do they have to kind of, no, you're on your own in this operation?
Oh, we're glad you asked that question.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I think once folks start putting assets out in the field, you start seeing wires going up. The question is that a utility full open access wire, or is that somebody's private network, right? I think there's more to talk about in that space, but it's going to need kind of changes in the approach. The utility market, especially in the wire scenario, is a dedicated regulated market. And the reason being is you don't want to have ratepayers all across, me and my house, you at your studio, paying for infrastructure that may or may not be utilized by a private entity, right? And so that kind of legacy setup, which, in all opinion, I think it makes the most sense for wires, makes sense for, wastewater coming to your house, a lot of things like that, right? That has set up a scenario where there are certificated areas where if you're going to be part of a conglomerate, right, to get electricity, that's called the utility, right? So you do have opportunities to connect with local utilities, and they do it all the time. I mean, electrification is not new, right? Folks have been electrifying assets for a while. What I think is new is trying to package it in a scenario that helps you corporately, right, at a large sense. The small players and big players have the opportunity to get a meter right at their fence for every one of their facilities. Where you start to see advantages is when you can pool those resources, those electric resources, and get it at a particular interconnect. That gives you opportunity in tariff structure. It gives you opportunity in power purchase agreements and a lot of things and playing in the market that can get you the portfolio that you're looking for, right? How risky do you want for your underlying wholesale assets? How firm do you want it, right? Those that were more risky paid a little extra penny in Winter Storm Uri, right? Those that are paid a little bit more for that premium and fixed price did fairly well, right? So that gives you that opportunity if you're able to pool your resources. But just like us at our houses, we're in a different tariff structure, right? We're paying a significantly higher than an industrial would, and that's because we're one customer in a very long regulated line, and that's not the utilities' fault. They're doing their best to keep things reliable, right? It's really the market structure that has driven those type of striations in what you can pay and what you don't.
I think, Ryan, your question was a little bit more about small E&Ps and their abilities to band together with some shared assets, right? Was that kind of where you were going with that?
Yeah.
There's some troubles doing that because then that makes you a utility.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, that's where I was kind of give a long-winded answer of saying the difficulty there is the regulatory structure is set so that if you're looking for individualized power, the utility serves that, right? It's not where I can get with Simon because he lives kind of near me and make my own little microgrid and be able to, pool power resources or things like that. It's really not set up to do that. And really that's where, having a large single use, single company use scenario is where you're going to be able to take advantage of this type of large electrification.
The scenario for the PUC won't allow it.
Yeah, no, it's already structured that way. So, that's really where having that larger build out and a larger need is where you look to do that.
So we hear a lot about decline curves. How do you think about decline curves for this? Because if you've got wells out there, they've been out there for a year, they're seeing significant decline. Is this still something to consider? Or we talked about brownfield, greenfield earlier a little bit, I know, but how, is there a certain point to where you kind of know, hey, these wells after 2 years or 3 years, they're just not going to produce enough regardless? Is there kind of a threshold for that?
Yeah, no, that's actually a great question. There is a threshold for that, but what folks have been taking into account is how much more can you get out of there with different technology, right? We've seen where folks have revisited areas, that were drilled or explored in a different technology era, and now all of a sudden with a larger, horsepower spend or different technology, you're really getting more out of that same asset, right? And that's where you're going to take that into account. Are you prevailing yourselves of technology that can utilize more power at the same spot, right? For longer usage rather than just keeping the well on as is, right? We're seeing things like e-drilling, e-fracking, and things like that, where if you have that structure out there, that infrastructure out there, then you can utilize this for those type of opportunities as well. And it may be right on the same pad, right? So you're really coming back to the same location or somewhere near to get into those fields. If you're in a scenario that the company is feeling that asset is already on decline and there's not opportunity in the near term, that's where looking at all the different opportunities in your stack is going to put that at a lower priority.
Okay. All right. I know we are getting up against the clock here. Anything else that you guys wanted to touch on that we didn't hit on before we let you out of here? You have a white paper, which we'll link to in the show notes, I see. Anything else just that you guys want to touch on?
Yeah, I'd like to say, one of the things in the white paper that I wrote, we've had a couple out there and from our experiences, is that we really should be looking at a win-win situation between the utilities, co-ops, munis, and those in the electrical industry and those trying to electrify their assets out in the field. That's always going to be the best plan. That's always going to be the best way to, a long-term relationship. You're going to have assets out there. And so there's an opportunity, if you really understand both sides, to do it the right way, right? Looking for a partner in your local utility, looking for a partner in your co-op, because there may be some miscommunication over the fence sometimes in two different industries. But as you can see, everything's tied here in Texas. Everyone's really excited about the exploration that we do, the jobs that it brings, and the electrical industry is excited about it as well. So we just want to make sure that we focus on a win-win situation for those that are looking to employ this endeavor for opportunities for reduction in emissions.
Okay, and so where can people find out more about what you guys got going on? Website, connect to you personally. We'll link to the white paper we said. You can be trade shows, events. Where do you want folks to go to?
Yeah, I think connecting personally, it's an emerging thing for us. There's opportunities. I think in linking to the white papers, we have a landing page specific to that. I always tell people we have a 7,000 person army behind us to find the right answer. So yeah, it's probably best. Simon and I have been doing a lot in this space for us to find the right people, the right time. And at the end of the day, you're looking for the right plan, maybe not execution now or anything like that. So always happy to pick up the phone and have a conversation.
And then we hopped in and out of the different industry conferences. I know the PCIC, the IEEE PCIC will be going on in San Antonio. We'll be there, talk about some of this stuff, but even some of the the hard energy stuff, the Haynesville conference for the Haynesville Shale I'll be there later this week. I know the Permian one's going to be up in Fort Worth here in a few months. We'll be over there talking electrification and answer any questions there. So I mean, we're in and out and around.
Okay, great. Well, we will link to y'all's LinkedIn profile as well in the show notes. Thank you, gentlemen, so much for coming on. It was a pleasure, and best of luck to you guys.
Thank you.
Always, thanks for having us on.
Thanks for having us.
All right, Mr. Shelton, what else we got for the day?
All right, we got basically one thing here. Ørsted launches its first renewable hydrogen project. So that's the main story for the roundup. Obviously, the Cabot Oil and Gas was the big one. This one also.
Man, it'd be nice if we had someone that would cover that story for us. God.
Yeah, it would be real nice, wouldn't it? Yeah. So that wraps us up for that white paper. I read through some of that. Man, it's interesting stuff there. So encourage people, if you're interested, take a look at that.
The question that, and I didn't want to ask them because it's not really fair to them or anyone, is if all producers use this model, would we have had the freeze out a few months ago?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
They're thinking about that. I was like, I wonder if everyone had deployed this technology, if we would have had, the freeze out that we had, or as long or as bad. Of course, I don't want to put them in the spot because that's kind of a loaded question there if you answer it. But that's what I was thinking about. Like, is this something that could help us in the future prevent this? Of course, it has to make economic sense. And to their point, and we started talking about ESG in the beginning, right? So if this is something that can help producers make money and get in better terms with investors, then it's definitely something to consider. But we'd love to hear from someone who has used this technology, hear their thoughts. Be happy to have you on the show. Reach out. And with that, Josh, until next week,